Recording started.
There we go. Okay, week 3. We're halfway there. How's everybody doing so far with the material? Are you finding it difficult? Are you finding it challenging? You're finding it challenging, Blanca? In the middle, gal? Okay. Ashley, what about you? How are you finding it? All right, good. Well, I think ethics is something that we can use in every part of our lives, just not, you know, business, but our professional, our relationships, just all different kinds of areas we can use ethics, apply ethics in what we're learning. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get started. Before we go on, I want to see, have you had a chance to look at the work that's due this week? And does anybody have any questions about discussion 3.1? The discussion's fairly simple, straightforward, because you're going to be using the 10 Commandments of computer ethics, and we're going to go over that a little bit during this class, during this session. So. Okay, and then how about, okay, good gal. Okay, and then we've got assignment 3.1. I want to make sure that you guys understand that you're going to choose 5 scandals from that list that you have, and for each one you're going to determine which of the 11 SOX Act titles would have been violated, and you gotta pick at least 2 titles for each scandal, and you're going to be graded on the accurate scandal, and then analysis of 2 of the titles, 2 of the SOX titles. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any concerns about getting that done? And don't forget to cite your sources, okay? Adequate references and citation of titles from the textbook in response, okay? Okay, we got plenty of time. They're not due till midnight tonight, so you've got plenty of time. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Chapter 6, the role of government. Some of this material is a little dry. And there's really not a whole lot I can do to jazz it up and make it exciting for you. So we'll just get through it fairly quick here. So key parts of key legislation that companies need to be concerned about as far as the role of government in governance. Mouthful. So we've got the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, the U.S. Federal Sentencing Guidelines, the Sarbanes-Oxley, which is a big one, the Revised Federal Sentencing Guidelines, and the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. So we'll focus on those a little more in depth here. So the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and that is a mouthful. So prior to the passing of this law, the illegality of paying bribes was punishable only through secondary sources, which means that there was really no bite to the regulations. The SEC could fine companies for failing to disclose such payments under the rules. The Bank Secrecy Act also required full disclosure of funds that were taken out of or brought into the USA. And the Mail Fraud Act made the use of U.S. mail or wire communications to transact a fraudulent scheme illegal. So it's jointly enforced by the U.S. Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, There are companies that are doing business in Mexico. They're doing business in areas where bribery is the way to get things done. So companies, and I know Walmart had a real challenge with that several years ago. They were trying to open some stores, and bribery was so commonplace that they really had to walk a fine line between staying legal and violating this act. The act encompasses all secondary measures that were currently in use, and then it focuses on two other distinct areas. So disclosure. So companies like Walmart are required to fully disclose any and all transactions that they conduct with foreign officials and politicians. Foreign officials and politicians, all right? Prohibition, the act incorporated the wording of the Bank Secrecy Act and the Mail Fraud Act to prohibit the movement of funds overseas for the express purpose of conducting a fraudulent scheme. So they could not bribe government officials, and they certainly could not wire the money overseas to take care of those bribes. So the U.S. Federal Sentencing Guidelines for Organizations, that's the second part of the governance, 1991, it holds organizations liable for the criminal acts of their employees and their agents. So anybody operating in the name of the corporation could also be held liable. So that could be auditing firms like Arthur Andersen with Enron. Penalties include monetary fines, or it can put companies on probation, and the implementation of an operational program to bring it into compliance with the standards of the sentencing guidelines. So monetary fines can be pretty darn stiff. If an organization is sentenced under this act, the calculation of the fine is determined through a three-step process. So they're going to determine the base fine, they're going to determine the culpability score, and then they're going to add those together to get the total fine amount. It was revised in 2004, and these are the three key changes. So companies now periodically are required to evaluate the effectiveness of their compliance programs. So they need to make sure that everything that they've got into place that makes sure that they are complying, they've got to look at those and audit those every once in a while. They also are required to actively promote ethical conduct. And they more clearly define accountability. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, this is the big one that came into play after Enron. And you can see through the list here what it developed. Auditor independence, for obvious reasons. Arthur Andersen was too busy reaping in billions of dollars to be too concerned about what Enron was doing with its books. Corporate responsibility, enhanced financial disclosures, commission resources and authority, studies and reports, white-collar crime penalty enhancements. So it was pretty all-inclusive. I think what it was developed to do is to pull in and close up any loopholes that some of the other legislation created. And the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act. This is the one that I was interested in, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. The Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act, federal regs primarily affecting primary institutions. So this is the one that oversees our financial institutions, and it is in response to some malfeasance that happened in the banking industry in 2008. Do you guys all remember when the markets took a dive in 2008? We kind of went into a little mini recession. Do you guys remember that at all? It was 8 years ago. So you might have, some of you might have been too young, I don't know. Where were you in 2008, Ashley? How about you, Blanca? Where were you in 2008? And how about you, Gal? Do you remember what you were doing in 2008, 8 years ago? Okay. So you might remember it, right? Okay, Gal, you were 14. You might not remember it. Too busy with other things. Okay. All right. So you guys kind of sensed it, probably kind of heard it in the peripheral of your lives at that time. But for me, it impacted me quite a bit because our company really, really took a hit in 2008. So for a couple of years, we were hurting. So Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that protects consumers from unfair, deceptive, or abusive practices by financial institutions. So that's the one that oversees the fees that some of these banks are charging for overdraft fees, for ATM fees, that type of thing. And I'm sure we're all familiar with ATM fees. The Financial Stability Oversight Council, they're part of the U.S. Treasury Department, and they monitor the stability of the U.S. financial markets, and they promote market discipline. And then the Volcker Rule prohibits banks from conducting certain investment activities with their own accounts. So no more hanky-panky, no more marginal investments, no more buying up real estate loans and then reselling them. Nothing that is going to impact our financial markets. So any questions about Chapter 6? It's a little dry, isn't it? Okay. Blanca, do you have a question? Okay, no questions. Okay, good deal. All right, so this was interesting, blowing the whistle. We all know what that means. The word whistleblower suggests that, according to Jeffrey Wiegand, Dr. Wiegand, the word whistleblower in and of itself is a negative connotation, even in my mind. It suggests that you're a tattletale and that you're somehow disloyal. But he says, I wasn't disloyal in the least bit. People were dying. I was loyal to a higher order of ethical responsibility. So do you see that? Are you familiar with this guy? No? Okay. If you ever get a chance to rent the movie The Insider, it's really good. So I put a little box there that tells you a little bit about what he did. In 1995, he achieved national prominence when he became the tobacco industry's highest-ranking former executive to address public health and smoking issues. He made the truth known to the public about the industry's disregard for health and safety during an interview with 60 Minutes. And he had to give a deposition in an action against the tobacco companies. So then they turned around, Brown and Williamson, the company he worked for, turned around, and because of his public disclosures, they sued him. The lawsuit was dismissed as a condition of the settlement in 1997. The settlement, do you see that $368 billion settlement between the attorneys general of 40 states and the tobacco industry? So we were one of those states. I think everybody with common sense knew that there was something wrong with smoking. I mean, you just had to know something was wrong, but this guy really broke open he really broke it open for everybody. So what's a whistleblower? An employee who discovers a corporate misconduct and chooses to bring it to the attention of others. So internally, it means that an employee discovers it and brings it to the attention of his or her supervisor, who then follows established procedures to address the misconduct within the organization. So it's all kept internally. An external whistleblower When an employee discovers corporate misconduct and chooses to bring it to the attention of law enforcement and or media. So external whistleblowing should be a last resort. You should really try to get it resolved internally before you take it externally. When's it ethical? So here's the 5 conditions. When the company, through a product or decision, will cause serious and considerable harm to the public or break existing laws, the employee should report the organization. So here lately we've had, is anybody familiar with the airbags in the Toyotas and the Hondas, the Takata airbags? No? Gosh, you guys don't watch the news? Are you too busy to watch the news? Probably too busy, right? Okay, that's fair enough. It's also ethical when the employee identifies a serious threat of harm, he or she should report it and state his or her moral concern. Number 3, when the employee's immediate supervisor doesn't act, the employee should exhaust the internal procedures and chain of command to the board of directors. So if your supervisor doesn't do anything, your HR person doesn't do anything, then you just keep moving it on up the line until you've run out of resources. So the employee's got to have some documented evidence that's convincing to a reasonable, impartial observer that his or her view of the situation is accurate. So you can't come forth and blow the whistle unless you have something tangible in your hands that can prove it. The employee must have valid reasons to believe that revealing the wrongdoing to the public will result in the necessary changes. So sometimes, you know, we don't get any, there's no action, these whistleblowers don't get any action internally, and they feel compelled to take it to the public. And it's unethical if the motivation is only for opportunity for financial gain or media attention. And it's unethical if the employee is carrying out a vendetta against the company. So, you know, one of the first things that you'll hear a company say in a news release if somebody comes public with malfeasance or what have you is, oh, they're just a fired employee trying to get back at us. So key point, like I said earlier, you better be darn sure of your facts and your evidence. Better be irrefutable before you start talking to people. Qui tam lawsuits. So this is a lawsuit brought on behalf of the federal government by a whistleblower under the False Claims Act of 1863. So bottom line, it rewards the whistleblower if their case recovers funds for the government. That's all it is in a nutshell. It rewards the whistleblower with funds. So 2002 was actually, they're calling it the year of the whistleblower. Here's 3 of the whistleblowers of the year. We've got Sharon Watkins over here on the right with the short hair. I don't know, can you guys see my cursor? No? Oh, then it doesn't mean no good. All right. Let me see if this will work. No, that's not working either. Okay, never mind. I was going to try drawing a circle around her. Okay, so Sharon Watkins was the Vice President of Corporate Development of Enron. She's the one who alerted Ken Lay to the accounting irregularities that were going to cause the company to implode. That same year, Colleen Rowley, a former FBI agent, blew the whistle that the FBI headquarters had mishandled and failed to take action on credible information regarding one of the 9/11 terrorists. So the Minneapolis field office actually gave them information on that terrorist, and headquarters failed to act on it. And then we have Cynthia Cooper, Vice President of Internal Audit, WorldCom. She uncovered $3.8 billion, God, that figure, just $3.8 billion in fraud at WorldCom, at the time labeled the largest single incident of accounting fraud in U.S. history. That kind of money is just unfathomable to me. I just can't wrap my arms around it. It's so much. And notice they're all women. All right. So then we have the Whistleblower Protection Act. It's applied to, at the time it applied to government whistleblowers only. So imposed specific processing deadlines of complaints, guaranteed anonymity of the whistleblower, and required prompt payment of any portion of the settlement entitled to the whistleblower. So I talked earlier about the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, and that is the act that really has some teeth. It's also referred to as the Corporate and Criminal Fraud Accountability Act. Do you guys remember from last week comply or else governance methodology? It was either comply or else, comply or explain. Okay. So comply or else is the one that does have the teeth. So Congress, with the SOX Act of 2002, Congress decided to take an integrated approach to whistleblowing. So they enhanced or fortified the Whistleblower Protection Act through the SOX Act. So it prohibits retaliation against whistleblowers. It encourages whistleblowing. It requires corporations to adopt a code of business ethics. It requires an internal source to be set up to receive, review, and solicit employee reports. The teeth of the statute is in the enforcement that includes administrative, civil, and criminal enforcement mechanisms. So a corporation could get hit 3 times over here and provides for both corporate and individual accountability. So not only can the corporation be held accountable, but the key players can be held accountable as well. And companies have a duty to respond to a whistleblower, and employers need to put into place a well-defined process to document how such complaints are handled, an employee hotline to file such complaints, a prompt and thorough investigation of all complaints, and a detailed report of all investigations. So do you, Ashley, I know you work, Blanca and Gal, do you girls work? So do you have, between the 3 of you, Ashley, Blanca, and Gal, does your employer have a process in place for you to report unethical behavior? Okay. All right. So, all right, good, an anonymous hotline. Okay. So, Blanca, did you say your company has something in place like that? Gal, you might want to ask, what kind of work do you do? And you don't have to tell me the name of the company you work for, but what kind of what does the company do? What's you think it's SAR? Okay. Oh, I have it online. Okay. Oh, all right, I gotcha. All right, good. Well, it's good to know. Now, do you guys all work for big companies? Lots of employees? Okay. Okay, well, I didn't know they had that many. Okay. Interesting to know. Are any of them publicly traded corporations? Okay. No, I know, okay, yours is nonprofit. And how about the other 2? Are they publicly traded corporations or are they privately held companies? Block and Gal. Oh, okay, good. Corporation, all right, good. So some of this really can pertain to what you're doing at your corporations. So employees who prevail in whistleblowing cases are entitled to damages, which may include reinstatement to the same seniority status, back pay, interest on that money, all compensatory damages to make the employee whole, and special damages. So would you want to go back to work? If a whistleblower, let's just say you're a whistleblower and in retaliation, which we all know is against the law, they fire you. Well, your case goes to court and you win your job back. Would you want to go back to work there? Me either. There is no way they could get me back there. Hi, Lostera. Did I say your name right? Hello? Lostera? All right, moving on. So remember I said whistleblowing is the last resort. In the text you'll find a little blurb about what has happened to some whistleblowers in the past. And I found this interesting. 90% were fired or demoted, retaliation. 27% faced lawsuits, again, retaliation. 26% had to seek psychiatric or physical care. That's kind of scary. 25% suffered alcohol abuse. 17% lost their homes. 15% got divorced. I know, it would be nice to know. It would be really nice if somebody could break out these numbers to let us know if any of these people were made whole again, you know? And whole again by receiving compensation, or, you know, it would be nice to know if the corporations received any kind of penalties for the retaliation. Yeah, I'd like to see them take this a step further. 10% attempted suicide and 8% were bankrupted. And I imagine the 8% that were bankrupted were responding to legal challenges. I know. And I wonder too, you know, if that's not the strategy of some of these corporations, is to bog down a complainant with so much legal stuff that they just can't deal with it. Yeah. So I saw this. I love this. Tattletale's getting himself some cookies, and she prefers whistleblower. So Ashley, I know you have a little one. Do any of you have more than one child? No babies yet. I know my three eldest grandchildren. They're always tattling on each other. So I'm gonna tell them to use the term whistleblower next time. Just one gets into everything. Well, that's the way the little types do. All right. So any questions about whistleblowing? Do you guys feel like you have a pretty good grasp on it? Okay, good deal. Would any of you ever tell me no? Okay. All right. So ethics and technology here. You know, I've read through this chapter several different times, and that's a terrifying book. And I just wanted to, again, this is more dry information, so that's why I kind of threw in a little case study. Did you guys all get to read that? Okay, good deal. All right, so Big Brother's watching. You better be careful on your computer. So real quick, the 10 Commandments of Computer Ethics, that's what you're going to be using for your discussion. And this is a little blurry, so don't use computers to harm other people. Don't interfere with other people's computer work. How many of you have ever given your password to a coworker so they could do something for you? Okay, never? Okay, smart. Just for the one at work, okay? Thou shalt not snoop around in other people's computer files. Thou shalt not use a computer to steal. Thou shalt not use a computer to bear false witness. Don't use the proprietary software. Don't use other people's computer resources without permission. Don't appropriate other people's intellectual output. And think about the social consequences of the program you're writing. And thou shalt always use a computer in ways that ensure consideration and respect for your fellow human. So pretty simple, right? All right. So on the off chance that somebody did not read the case, I put it in here. So do we need to review the case, or are you guys pretty clear about it? Okay. Actually, I don't think you're a part of the business ethics class. We'll be done at 7 o'clock. All right. So let's take a look at it. So I want each one of you to give me one argument for the behavior. Why would the behavior be okay? I'll give you a couple minutes. Okay, we'll talk about why it's wrong here in a minute. I want to see arguments for the behavior. Okay, Blanca, why do you think it's not wrong? Is it because are you justifying it because it's on his computer, his personal computer? Okay, all right. How about you, Gal? What's your argument for him being able to use it? That's good. That's a good argument, Ashley. Okay. All right. So, Gal, your argument is against. Give me an argument for the behavior. Why do you think he would be justified in using the software? That's okay. Now, I wanted an argument for why he would be justified in using the software. Did you hear that? Okay. So I'll give you a few seconds to go ahead and respond. Okay. In the meantime, Ashley and Blanca, can you give me an argument against the behavior? I think you guys started in on something with your earlier post. So why is the behavior wrong? Good. That's great, Ashley. Okay. That's easy, Blanca. Okay. So, if the person decides to use the upgraded software, then if you decide to use the upgraded software, you can be breaking any of the commandments that we went over. Remember these commandments? Which ones are we breaking? Or is there just one? Number 6? Okay, good. Any others? Blanca, Gal? Which one of the 10 commandments? Is there another one? Okay, I don't think so. I think Blanca, number 7 could apply. Right. That's right, Ashley. I was thinking the same thing myself. Number 4 as well. Okay. So it could be justified. It could very well be stealing. Do you think there's a do you think that there is a way that you could balance this where you can use the software and also teach and use it for other things, your own personal gain, without being unethical? Is there anything that you could do that would make this situation ethical? I know what I would do if faced with a similar situation, and what I've done in the past. Anybody? Ashley, Blanca? Is there a way to make this an ethical situation so that nobody's hurt by it? Okay. There you go. Yeah, both good ideas. I would, you know what I would do, because they said that the pay, I think it was in here, the pay, it doesn't pay very well, all right? So what would be wrong with going to the school and asking them, look, you know, I love teaching. How would you feel if I use the software for my other job? Or you could pay, that's right, you could pay as well. And then if the employer says no, there's no way we can let you do that, then you just don't do it, period. And I think you could pay the employer well as well. You could say, okay, you know, I'm making $25 an hour. If I ask you to pay me $20 an hour, may I use the software? Okay, good. Yeah, when I'm at work and I have some downtime and I want to do something on the computer that personally benefits me, I'll just go in and tell my boss. I said, you know, I want to do this for about 15 minutes. Are you okay with it? And he always says yes. So, all right. So, any questions about this? Any ambiguity at all? Do you think? And your cell phone example's perfect, Ashley. All right. Well, since we have a huge class, you don't have to wait here. You guys can go ahead and go. You can go ahead and go, and then I will see you next Tuesday. Don't forget, shoot me an email if you have any questions, okay, about the assignments, the discussion, anything at all. So you guys can go ahead and go. Gal, you can go ahead and go. We're all done. We'll see you next Tuesday, okay?